I think that we always have our eye on the technology. We want the new shiny thing, but we don't look around and see everything else around it. Are we ready for it? The most subtle red flag that I've found that I don't notice until you look back on is misalignment on language internally. The language I heard early on was, we're going to upgrade our mobile app. We're going to be innovative now. We're going to compete with fintechs and Chime, okay? So I hear one where the head teller is talking to a customer about P2P, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. And they're like, yeah, I don't use that either. It's scary. And team members need to use the products, right? It starts there, okay? You don't go working at Ann Taylor and wear Old Navy, okay? You actually have to use the app.
Welcome to Next Best Action, the podcast about the people changing banking from the inside. I'm Alex Jimenez with Finalytics.ai, real-time AI personalization built exclusively for credit unions and banks. On this show, we talk with leaders about engagement, growth, innovation, and what it takes to build better banking. Welcome to Next Best Action. My guest today is CarrieAnne Cormier, founder of BankSmart Studio. Formerly, she was the COO at IC Credit Union in Fitchburg, Mass., and SVP of Retail Operations and Strategy at Avidia Bank in Hudson, Mass. as well. If you don't know CarrieAnne or BankSmart Carrie, as we call her, you should check out her weekly The Carrie Show on YouTube. Welcome, CarrieAnne. And before we get into our topic, which will be digital transformations, tell us about the BankSmart Studio.
Awesome. Yeah, Alex, thank you so much for having me. So I started the idea of BankSmart Studio because I feel like we're talking about the same things in banking, and it's the same trainings, the same stuff out there. And someone who has been in it at the executive level all the way, to the teller line, I've seen so much and I want to talk about it. And I think there are a lot of people that are still trying to figure it out along with me. And so it's really been a place to share ideas, conversations, and then we're going to be branching into some more training and coaching. But I'm really excited just to start getting the conversations out there to talk about the things that we're afraid to say around the boardroom table because we know we're all thinking it.
Yeah, that's great. I did watch your latest episode this morning to have a chuckle over the Pope story. It's hilarious. Anyway, let's get going on our topic, which is digital transformations and why do they stall? And I know that you have been involved in digital transformations within your organization. So you were running operations at Avidia at the same time I was running operations at Rockland Trust.
Yeah.
And both of us were involved in the digital transformation. We probably called it something different then. But when you moved to the COO seat at IC Credit Union, what did you see that made you think we're going to get in our way here before the technology even matters?
That's a great question. And I think that we always have our eye on the technology. We want the new shiny thing, but we don't look around and see everything else around it. Are we ready for it? I would say that one thing that made me think, oh man, we are so not ready is when you find out early on and you see it, everyone has to run every decision by executive leadership. Okay. We can't refund a customer $50. We can't have a jeans day for the staff. What greeting card should we send out for employees on their anniversary? Should it have a birthday hat or should it have one of those noisemakers? That was a sign early on for me. And I joke, but this was very serious. First week I'm there, the head of retail kept telling me she was going to the bathroom. And I'm like, I don't need to know that. And she's like, oh, well, I wanted to make sure you knew where I was because if I'm not at my desk, I get in trouble. And I'm like, oh, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, maybe that was very much an indicator of what culture was like, whether it was intended or not.
Yeah.
A lot of time this kind of culture happens and it's not necessarily the current leadership, but it's been ingrained for years and it's hard to break. And then it continues to perpetuate. And so for me, that was the thing. When you have to get executive leadership involved in every decision or many of the decisions, that stuff gets in the way before you can even start to talk about technology.
Yeah. And then when you're trying to make a decision of we need to change our digital banking platform, which is a big decision,
Yeah.
It takes a year and a half at best.
Absolutely. And let's get everyone in and we'll do the pros and the cons list and make sure everyone weighs in and has their vote. And well, what happens when everyone picks one, but it's not the best one? How do you go back and backpedal that? So it's definitely, yeah, a lot of decision fatigue and analysis paralysis.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've been there. I remember being part of an organization that acquired another
Mm.
organization, and the cultures were very different. The acquirer was very much led by someone, and everyone followed what this person wanted to do. So top-down culture, and the other one was the let's hold hands and let's all agree. And the clashes between those two cultures was amazing to see, and it was years
Mm.
later that they
Yeah.
were still fighting,
Yep.
the little tribes that were inside the bank. So,
Absolutely. And I'm very much like a hands off, make sure you let me know that you're not in a ditch somewhere so I don't worry about you. But other than that, if you're doing your job, I am not in your business. And so to have someone that would say, like, hey, I'm doing this, I'm like, this feels strange. So it's definitely one of those things you got to pick up on because it tells you before it tells you, if that makes any sense.
yeah, yeah. As I manage a transformation, I was very much aware of the challenges in front of me and was very much aware of who I needed to get the buy-in from and
Hmm.
continually sell the idea that we needed to transform, that we need to upgrade, that we needed to look at things differently, et cetera. And, 3-4 years go by and I felt like I always was doing the same thing. And something that I was never aware was all the changes that I actually was able to get done. And it wasn't until I was gone from that organization that I realized I did a lot of stuff and the culture did change and a lot of things did get better. But when you're in the trenches, it's difficult to know where you are in that process. And do
Hmm.
you have momentum? And is it
Hmm.
going away or anything like that when you were at Avidia or IC
Yeah,
credit union?
yeah, I would say, so I definitely, having looked back on all the digital projects I've done, I always felt, like you said, so in the trenches and, oh, we're not making enough headway. And then I look back at some of the stuff that we did at a video and I'm like, holy crap, how did we, one, get away with that? Two, like pull it off in that time frame. And like, it was just like some sort of like magical moment where everything came together for me. But when you start to look at like where things fall apart, there's some glaring ones out there, right? Like we know that there starts to be meetings on meetings, and you need a team sync for everything, and just to make sure we're on the same page. And you start to unpack implementations and find out maybe someone on the team misunderstood what was going to happen with a conversion or an upgrade, or maybe a vendor overpromised, and then you need additional connectware or plugin, and you start to lose some momentum there. But honestly, the secret, it happens very early on. The most subtle red flag that I've found that I don't notice until you look back on is misalignment on language internally. And what I mean by that is, like, I had just been through recently a big tech stack upgrade. So we did core digital cards, payments, everything in between, all at the same time.
Yeah. Wow.
Not my idea, but we did it. And the language I heard early on was, we're going to upgrade our mobile app. We're going to be innovative now. We're going to compete with fintechs and
Right.
Chime. Okay.
Right.
We're,
Right.
we're going to be just like Chime. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
hold on. So, like, when we're out there purchasing, like, let's just take digital for example, right?
Mhm.
The Alchemy, Q2, any of the core processor ones, FIS, Jack Henry, Fiserv, a lot of it, as you know, is the same platform, color
Yeah.
coded with new wallpaper
Yeah.
to the other one. So
Mhm.
I tried to always be very, very mindful with my team about making sure the language was precise, because when you start getting the idea in everyone's head of, oh, this is going to be great, we're going to be able to do all this stuff, and then you launch and you're just the same as the bank or credit union down the street with different colors,
Yeah.
there starts to be like a letdown of like, well, we were promised we could do this. And I thought we were going to be innovative. How come we still have wood paneling on the walls and we have brocade drapes? Like,
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely. Yes, I've been there.
Yeah. So it's like, for me, it's making sure you recognize that early on that language matters, words matter, and to curate internal communication and ensure that the understanding is the same so that from the CEO down to the mail courier, that you're all thinking the same way in the same language. And that's hard. We know that's hard, but something to be mindful of because that for me is where I see momentum start to slip.
Yeah. Yeah. I often, when people ask me, what breaks a transformation?
Yeah.
And to me, it's always leadership,
Yep.
right? And to me, the ones that I have seen worked, the top leadership were behind them, particularly the CEO. The CEO doesn't have to be involved in everything, does not have to make all the decisions, but they are behind the idea of the change. When the
Absolutely.
CEO says, hey, CIO, COO, or worse yet, Mr. Project Manager,
Yeah.
you are in charge of this transformation, then you know
Yep.
you're in trouble. I
Yep.
had a situation where the head of a business unit delegated major transformational change to someone. And then later on, he was complaining that nothing ever got done. It's like, yeah, but you did not come to the meetings. You did not answer questions.
Mm-hmm.
You were not involved. So that's why. And he was like, but I gave them all the power. Well, they didn't
Yep.
even know they had their
Yep.
power.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how we sometimes we can't get our own way out of our own way as leaders.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and at the end of the day, it's not necessarily a technology problem, right? At the end of the day, we're talking about culture and leadership. Yeah, have you had situations where people really just got stuck on the idea that this is a technology problem, but the reality is it's something very different?
Only every single day. Like if I could summarize my experience with digital down to one statement, it would be that. Because what I find, and this is just like a broad statement based on my experience, is that digital is still being treated like a side project
Mhm.
at
Yeah,
most organizations.
yeah,
Because in 2007, when we were standing up mobile banking, right, who was in charge of it? Deposit ops. Because
right.
they were in charge of the core banking function and changing the codes and all of that, right? So, for some reason, at a lot of organizations, they're still in charge of digital.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
And we haven't come up with that separation of what's digital strategy and digital experience versus digital administration. So you have a group of people that they're great testers. They will check every single
Oh, yeah.
box, okay, 3 times, but they are not thinking of the customer or member experience. They're not thinking of how we're going to train it and talk about it internally. They're just like, oh, well, I asked the vendor if they had a training guide.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm sure you did because that was on the project plan. You did
that's
a
right.
great job.
Yeah.
But it really, that's been like the hardest part for me to break. And I've gone through like so many times and I actually like me and my team at Avidia, we got to the point where talking about looking back and actually seeing progress. I look at it now and I'm like, we had built a team we called Tech Table where every other week there was probably 8 of us that met, and it was from retail, marketing, training, IT, digital operations. And we would just sit at a table and we say, okay, what's new? And
Mhm.
we would talk about like, okay, well, we're doing this upgrade. Okay. And now marketing would know, okay, we got to start thinking about that. Training would know, okay, how am I going to communicate that internally? And like sometimes people don't realize what they're doing touches digital or how it could be framed that way. And
Right.
so it was a really great way for us to talk about it. And it wasn't like a decision committee
Mhm.
because those are bad too when we need the 10-person decision committee. But it was really like a cross-functional team. And that works so well because when you have it just sit in operations, there's no thought or accountability for customer member experience, internal awareness, marketing, training. They say, okay, we're done. Here you go,
Yeah.
market it.
Yeah.
You know that never works. And
Yeah.
it also increases the go to market time of like, okay, well, I've already had my calendar planned for the year and now I need another, 6 to 8 weeks to do creative and ideas and all that. And it's just, it doesn't work that way. And so many organizations are still doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they approach branches differently
Mm,
because the feeling is that's where our customers or members are at the
yeah,
branch. Well, no, they're not.
right.
Vast
Hmm.
majority of them never walk into a branch. So that's
Yep.
no longer the case. So in the past few years, I've worked with a lot of the regional banks and theirs is different, right? The digital team has become part of their product management organization.
Hmm.
There's different challenges there because
Hmm.
they believe, digital is a product and not necessarily a channel and not necessarily something that where you work on the experience. So there's a different set of issues if they're defined as a product. But looking back, having been at a small community bank, I was the head of operations. I was also the head of product.
Yeah.
Nobody ever said, "Hey, Alex, you own the debit card product," but I did. I owned it,
Hmm.
and I would have meetings with Mastercard, I believe, was our
Yep.
vendor, to talk about what we are going to do for marketing and so on. You have an operations person
Yep.
talking to your company, your Mastercard, and the marketing team's not even involved in the discussion.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very bizarre. It's just we have
Yep.
not adjusted our organizations to meet the requirements and needs of
Yep.
the digital world. So,
I agree. And when
yeah,
I sit around tables, the pendulum starts to swing all the way the other way. And it's like, well, this falls under marketing.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you got to be very careful about that too, because I love my marketing friends, but they are not all the box checkers
yeah,
sometimes. You need that balance.
yeah. When you and I met many, many years ago, we were both working. We were both part of the social media teams at
Mm,
our banks. And both of us were back office people. And I remember talking to our marketing team, and they're like, "No, you do social media. We don't do social media."
yeah.
And to me, I was like, "What? But you're marketing." They're like, "No, no, we
Right.
don't know anything about that. You know about the tech stuff. You do social media. You're digital," which was very strange. And you guys at Avidia did an amazing job, which is how you and I connected in the social media world. There was a lot of that weird consternation of what's marketing and
Yep.
where do they fit and how do they fit within this whole digital world. When I owned digital, I owned the website, I owned the
Yeah.
social media, I owned a whole bunch of things that should have never been owned by
Hmm.
someone in operations.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, you'll be glad to know that that's still alive and well today
Oh
in the
yes,
cultures of banks and credit unions.
oh yes, I see that every day. Yeah, absolutely. The other piece I wanted to ask you is, having just worked with a fintech that was pitching to banks, the community institutions, both community banks and credit unions, are constantly being pitched by all kinds of different vendors, and it's such a challenge, I believe, to be on that side and having to figure out which one of these vendors are the real thing and what
Hmm.
do they bring and how they fit into what we want to do as far as transformation. What counsel would you give to folks out there who are challenged with that situation right now?
Yeah, this one is hard to pinpoint because my approach with vendors is just be real with me. Right.
Right.
And some of that is like based on my personality of like, just tell it to me straight. And I can sniff out like when someone feels like they're over promising or anything like that. And that really, I really struggle with because some of my best vendors haven't always been the ones that their product performs the best. But they'll tell me what the deficits are. They'll tell me what to be mindful of, and they will marshal every resource they have to support me when I need it. And for me, knowing that like I could call someone and say, "Hey, we're running into this," and they're like, "Okay, I'm getting ahead of this product. This, you know what I mean?" And they're on the meeting. Or I've worked with some that have helped put me in the spotlight as like a younger executive on like, "Hey, can we get you out at different conferences or different events?" And that has meant so much to me. in being a good partner, and not necessarily like how you base your vendor decisions, but when you put that whole picture together of, is this just a transaction or does this feel like an actual relationship or partnership? I think that's what's different. I'm willing to be more lenient on the technology if I know we can get to the end result together.
Yeah, we just touch on culture, and that gets blamed for a lot of things, and I am guilty of of doing that. In fact, I did that just a few minutes ago. But
Yeah.
what does a culture that actually supports transformation look like, particularly from being in operations and driving the day-to-day transformation?
Yeah. Oh, this is like one of my favorite topics because, like, for me, culture isn't, it's like a vibe, right? It's like
Mhm.
the unwritten rules that's so
Exactly.
ingrained into what you do that it just happens, right? You don't need a manual for it. You don't need a playbook. It's just how we show up every day. And
Mhm.
I've always talked with teams about, like, we need to build a culture of digital. Okay. It's strategy isn't just having a strategy person. Digital isn't just having a digital person. It's not a committee, like I said earlier, it's a team. And team members need to use the products, right? It starts there. Okay. You don't go working at Ann Taylor and wear Old Navy. Okay. You actually have to use the app.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Like,
Yes.
well, you know what I'm talking about, right? Because so many people in an organization don't use their own technology.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
for me, that is like the most frustrating thing because, like, I'll give you an example. I walk into a branch one day, head of retail. I always like do branch visits, talk to people, but you hear a lot of good stuff on the way, customer conversations. So I hear one where the head teller is talking to a customer about P2P, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And they're like, yeah, I don't use that either. It's scary. I'm like,
And you just
no.
rolled out Zelle.
Right, right. And I'm just, no, 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 no. And so, like, you realize in those moments that no matter how many resource guides you put in front of them or training materials or little webinars you make them watch, it is not filtering down.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Right, right.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
like, things like that. Training, workshops, they need to be inclusive. I've had the similar things. You can appreciate this. Commercial lenders, mortgage originators. Yeah, I think we have an app for that, right? You
Yes.
don't have a culture of digital or a culture of transformation if everyone doesn't buy in and understand it.
Oh God. I have a quick story. So I was the head of digital, right? I got a phone call from one of our board members. And the question was, when are we going to roll out mobile deposit? This is a year and a half after we rolled it
Yep, sure was, huh?
out. So I told him, and then he's like, "Oh, I didn't know that." I said, "Well, do you have the app?" He's like, "No." You want to use the app? Let me walk you through it. So here
Yeah,
I am the executive at the bank,
yeah,
helping on the phone the board member to download the app and then get into the app, and then without seeing what he's doing,
yeah.
telling him how to do everything. But his grandson said that he should have mobile deposit, and he wasn't sure we had it. It's like, amazing.
It takes a village, that's for sure.
It sure does. It absolutely does. Yeah. Uh, CarrieAnne, before we leave, I want to do a lightning round. So the
Ooh,
idea here, so I'm going to give you a question, and I want you to give me a quick answer with whatever comes to mind. So don't spend a ton of time thinking about these.
okay.
So what's one book every banking leader should read?
What?
And you can pass.
No, no. Can I hold on? I'm gonna get it wrong. So let me just.
Yeah.
It's Chris Voss. He's an
Yeah.
expert, has former FBI negotiator. Let me just make sure I get the name of the book right.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
have it
familiar
on.
with this book. So
Oh, it's so good.
yeah. So now I
I
know what to read.
It's called Never Split the Difference.
Okay.
And I have it on audiobook, so I listen to it when I'm driving, and sometimes I'll listen to it again and again. It's really good.
Yeah, great. Okay. Coffee or tea?
Neither.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm not a caffeine person, so I don't do either. I am, let's see, what do I drink? I'm trying out the sparkling water, like the seltzers.
Yes.
I'm dabbling in that now because I heard it makes you like smart and hip.
Okay. All right. Yep. What's the first thing you do when you wake up?
Well, you know what? So I have 4-year-old twins. And they creep in the bed and somehow at 2 a.m. And so I have one on each side. So the first thing I do is like roll them out.
That's good. That's good. All right. What's one piece of advice you wish you'd gotten earlier in your career?
Keep doing it. And what I mean by that is like so many people will like downplay the skills that you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, even talking about like me doing my YouTube show, that's something I would have done 10 years ago.
Yep.
If someone said, hey, you're good at that, just keep doing it.
Okay. That's great. What's your number one leadership mantra, if you have one?
My number one leadership mantra. I'm not going to say this right, but it's like surround yourself with really good people and get out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That's great.
Yeah. That has been my biggest success.
What's the most valuable lesson you've learned from failure?
I love failure.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. No, I welcome it. The most valuable lesson, I would say that it's okay to fail. There's such a stigma around it's not okay to fail and that you got to be perfect at everything. And it's okay. Life goes on.
Yeah. All right. Last question from this round. If you were in banking, what would you be doing?
Well, fun known fact. I started out wanting to be an elementary school teacher, which I do not think I would want to do now. After having 3 kids, that's a lot of work. Yep. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, you're going to be a YouTube influencer.
Yeah, I think that's where it is. Yeah, I'm with you. Banking. No one ever sets out to be a banker.
That's right. Yes. Yes. That's my dad will remind me that I have an engineering degree. So I do have one last question. What is the one step forward you would challenge every banking leader listening to take after this episode?
Okay. So can I take a hot second?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So like, here's what I struggle with. Like I was talking about this on my show and just because we're talking about YouTube, but I get really frustrated when people talk about data. Love data, right? But people don't follow it. So I think it was the Financial Brand or something that talked about where Gen X, millennials, et cetera, Gen Alpha are getting their financial information. Most of it is from YouTube or like TikTok, right? Where do people in marketing places invest their marketing dollars? It's still in CD newspaper ads. It's still in, we're gonna put a splash page on like, no, like just, I encourage people to open up their eyes, like see what's around them, watch the trends. They'll tell you a story if you listen and just follow that data. And it doesn't have to be numbers, just trends.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. So, well, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be continuing to watch your YouTube.
Thank you so much. This has been great. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm very happy to have you. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening to Next Best Action. I'm Alex Jimenez. If this conversation gave you a new idea or a better question to ask, share the show with someone in banking who should hear it too. Be sure to follow along for more candid conversations on the future of banking.